Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Okay, can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everybody. We have the cutest little dog today. Come here, baby. Little Shih Tzu. It's a female. About 5 years old. About 6 years old. Great personality. Very lovable. Come here. Let's go. See everybody in the back so they can see you because they might want to take you home. Got a lot of people here from United for Animal Justice. I'm sure one of you guys are going to want to take this cute little dog home. So those of you that don't know, you can check us out on our website. If this isn't the type of dog you want, we have big ones and small ones and young ones and old ones. So come on down to our dog kennel and take home a pet for yourself today. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November 12th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Our thought for the day: I find the great thing in this world is not so much where we stand as what direction we are moving.
So nice to have you back, Commissioner.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
Welcome back, Commish.
Thanks.
At 9:45, we'll have a presentation from United for Animal Justice, Rick Lorain. Under resolutions, number 1, there are no job and family services bills. Number 2, investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Appropriations.
Aren't you going to let Ted vote?
It's okay.
Oh.
You guys are used to just
I
two
know, I'm
people.
sorry.
You got two,
See
that's
how
okay.
easily forgotten I am?
But you got included this week,
You got
see?
I did.
Mr. Kalo.
Sure.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Travel expenses.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Under the airport, approve various change orders for the airport ADA improvement project. 1 Williams Brothers Builders Elyria, change order number 1, scope of work, patch existing wallpaper and corridor and paint, install new all covering in lobby, amount not to exceed $975, remove and replace exterior masonry corner adjacent to the new entry due to the deterioration, amount not to exceed $450, total change order is $1,425. And 2 affiliated environmental Sandusky, Ohio, change order number 1, scope of work, deduct removal of wall covering in hallway. It's a credit of $975.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Madam President. I, believe it or not, do not have any personnel issues in Golden Acres this morning.
Wow.
But I do have a number of labor relations issues with regard to our union contracts that I wish to discuss with the board. It's an allowable topic under the Sunshine Law, so I would request that we have an executive session at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the same for Lorain County Board of Commissioners meeting minutes for November 5th, 2009.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Reject bid submitted by Smile Inc. for Transportation Center Phase 2 audio-visual equipment. One bid was open on October 2nd, which did not include a bid bond and unable to obtain a contract bid.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Approve various change orders for Transportation Center audio-visual equipment contract. One, Atlas Electric Construction, Elyria, Ohio. Change order number one, scope of work to include all necessary materials and labor required for the audio-visual equipment installation, $7,518. Cutting and patching of plaster, $5,000, amount not to exceed $12,518. Schreimer Construction Company, North Olmsted, change order number two, scope of work to include all necessary materials, equipment, and labor required for the wood blocking, core drilling, and other miscellaneous items for the audio-visual equipment installation, amount not to exceed $12,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah,
And-
Mr. Cordez, no general fund money, please, if we can restate
No.
that again. This is out
No.
of the earmark money from the feds.
No general fund money, and with regard to what happens with transit and doesn't, as we make difficult decisions going into 2010, we do need to finish this project, and it is all federal earmark money that's been there for several years. So I would ask the board to continue forward, even though it will appear that it may be anti-productive at this point.
Thank you.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Purchase 538 East College Street, Overland, parcel 0900087103-015. Assistance is $167,350. Projects is 50/50 project with Erie County. The remainder of the cost is federally funded in Erie County. 3 Beard Road, replacement north of State Route 303. Total cost is $330,000. OPWC assistance is $244,200. Local share is $85,800 with the split 50/50 with Camden Township cost. County cost is $42,900. 4 2010 resurfacing and safety program. Total cost is $641,000. OPWC assistance is $570,490. Local cost is $70,510 resurfacing various roads. These projects will be funded if additional funds are allocated to OPWC. 210 Bridge Program Phase 1, total cost is $330,165. OPWC assistance is $293,840. Local share is $36,318. And 2010 Bridge Program 2, total project $304,000. OPWC assistance is $270,560. Local share $33,440.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Under the sheriff, approve and enter into maintenance agreements with SunGuard in the amount of $2,246.40 effective December 1st, 2009 through November 30th, 2010 for the MTDs and the patrol vehicles to be paid from the contract service credit account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Workforce Institute, approve and enter in a lease agreement with Workforce Institute of Lorain County for 12,028 square feet of finished office space at 42495 North Ridge Road, Elyria, effective retroactive July 1st, 2009 through June 30th, 2010, at a total rental amount of $91,429.54, payable a monthly amount of $7,619.13, which is based upon the per square foot cost is determined by Maximus.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Do we want to do the
Presentation.
Mr. Lalonde? Jim's probably going to turn it over. Jim?
Jim? Flip it over here.
Okay, United for Animal Justice would like to thank the county commissioners for having us here at the meeting today and for the focus on the Lorain County Dog Kennel. I'd also like to thank members of United for Animal Justice for coming here today. It's
Rick, put
really
the mic,
difficult since most of us
pull it up. There you
most
go.
of us work 9 to 5, but we do have quite a big turnout here. Well, why we're here, my group starts every meeting with a prayer, and we feel that it's our responsibility to speak for and care for all the animals, not just the dogs of Lorain County. And we feel that there are some things that we just have to come here and talk with you about today. Just a little bit about our perspective here. We, as most of the commissioners know, we have a very good rapport with about 8 or 10 different dog wardens in northeastern Ohio. You know, we study private municipal shelters. We've made comparison charts with Mr. Commissioner Kalo is you know, very fond of. He's looked over them a lot before, and we break down all kinds of different things of the various county kennels. And so we have a really good understanding of what works and what doesn't at both municipal and privately run kennels. We have very good relationships with many of the veterinary hospitals around here. We get feedback from many rescues in many other states, not just Ohio. And to go a little bit of a detail on here, I want to focus basically on the positive here and focus on improving things. But of course, we're partially here because there are some issues and concerns that need fixed. And one of the things that I'll get to in a little bit here is that there are a lot of rescues in Ohio and in neighboring states, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania and stuff. They talk to us and they don't want to pull dogs from Lorain County Kennel anymore, and it's been that way for, like 10 or 15 years because they've been burnt too many times by dogs they get dying of parvo. Parvo is extremely fatal disease. Only about 50% of dogs that get treatment survive it, and it's a very painful disease, and it has a lot of psychological, emotional, and financial costs associated with it. And this is one of the things we want to talk with you about. That's one of the main reasons why the other, a lot of rescue groups don't want to pull dogs from our county kennel. Like I say, I'm not going to focus too much on the negative, but on the positive for this is that if we start doing things, doing procedures and protocols like other shelters and county facilities around here, we can cut down a lot on the spread of parvo at the kennel. And so that's what I would like to make my point today and implore you guys to do to develop some procedures for this, because once we would get these procedures in place and reduce the spread of this parvo and the number of dogs dying, we can get a lot more dogs adopted out, thereby saving a lot of dog lives. So
Can I stop you there for just 1
Sure.
second? We have a standard operating procedure at the dog kennel, and it does take into account parvo and what needs to be done in case of a dog coming in with that
We have
illness.
We have standard operating procedures for everything.
Right.
Whether they're being followed or not is the situation.
I did speak to Dr. Wood, and he said out of like the 1,700 dogs that we've had at the kennel, that we've only had like 2 cases of parvo and it wasn't dogs that got it within our facility. It was that they had it when they came there, and that they did use standard operating procedures and quarantine those dogs so that no other dogs got
yeah,
got
well,
the
I'm really
disease in
shocked
the
that he
kennel.
would say that, quite frankly, because you remember I had a meeting with him a few months ago, and I told him before he became the medical director, that we really need to keep good records of these. United for Animal Justice is the only one that really tracks these things. I know
How many dogs did you guys say that we had?
Well, we've had 3 contract parvo here just recently. One that Fido's Rescue pulled out of there, and some of these dogs that have contracted parvo, I have tons of records at home, your official pound keepers records. Some of these dogs get parvo after being there 10 or 12 days. And there's just no way in heck these dogs are coming in with parvo that have been there 10 or 12 days. So, I told Dr. Wood that. Quite frankly, it's just a bogus claim because he doesn't keep records of this stuff. And I told him about that. I said, you shouldn't be making claims of these things when you're not keeping the records. And so, we've had a bad case here. We had a dog came in with parvo about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now we've had a bunch of other dogs get parvo at the county kennel. And what is just totally unacceptable by any other county kennel standards is a few years ago, and I sent you guys the letter on this, I have it on my computer. There were dogs that were diagnosed with parvo at Fox Veterinary, taken by the dog warden, put back in the run, or in the main kennel area with all the other dogs to infect the other dogs. That would be like, us bringing somebody here with tuberculosis into this county kennel meeting. I mean, you would never dream of doing that. Why would we take dogs with this very, very contagious disease and go put them back with the other dogs?
Let me ask you this.
It's unconscionable.
We got a medical veterinarian physician at your bequest a couple years ago. So now you're challenging the integrity of Dr. Woods.
I don't do this lightly, and I didn't want to
But
do
I'm
this.
asking the question, yes or no?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so, once again, we're back to point zero. You ask us to do something, we do something. We get a well-respected veterinarian from the community, and you have issue with him.
I'm sorry for that. We did recommend him, and he's done a lot of good things with the transfer program and the vetting, but he's not there every day. He only goes there twice a week in about 10 minutes. And, I didn't come here to bring up that issue. I mean, Commissioner Kukowski started asking questions about this and wanted details. And I just, you started asking me questions about it and wanting to know about that, and that's just the truth. I mean, it's, I talk with 8 vets at West Park, and so does Michelle. We talk with vets at Dowds, and we talk with a lot of other vets at the vet hospitals around here. And if Dr. Fox were here himself, or even if Dr. Wood were here, I'm sure he would tell you that it's not proper to take dogs with parvo. And I mean, I'll be happy to have, come here next week and have Dr. Wood here. I'm sure he'll tell you it is by no means proper to take dogs that are diagnosed with parvo and put them back
That
with
doesn't make
other
any
dogs.
sense.
Yeah, but once again, you're saying,
I've got like 20 people here in rescue, and they know about that.
we're not disagreeing with the premise. We're disagreeing that that's occurred, okay?
Oh, there's no doubt it occurs. I mean, I wrote you letters on
You
it.
write me a lot of letters, okay? You're suggesting that after the dog has been examined by the vet, it has parvo and it's placed back into
I'm
general
not suggesting
population.
that always happens, but it has happened on some occasion. It should never happen. Sorry.
That's all right. I appreciate what you're saying. And once again, when a dog is observed to have a potential case of parvo, it's examined by the veterinarian, and if it's released by the veterinarian, we have an obligation to place it back into general population for adoption and retrieval. We operate under some tight constraints, and we would not introduce that dog back in the general population if the vet said it had parvo.
I'm not talking about the general population being outside the kennel. I'm talking about these 2 dogs were diagnosed with parvo by Dr. Fox a couple years ago, and they were taken and put back in the main room that has the 40 kennels in it.
And this was a couple years ago.
Yes, but the same thing has been happening here just a couple weeks ago. They actually told volunteers over at the kennel a few weeks ago when they had the last dog come in there with parvo, that parvo was not a contagious disease. And you can read on 100 websites, it's extremely
Oh, yeah.
contagious.
The one thing I can't deal with, and I can't deal with in letters, is they, them, those. I absolutely need to know names, times, all those things so that I can deal with it. It's very hard for me to deal with issues, and I do take your letters seriously. I've known you a number of years.
Yes, we
I don't always get the results that you like, and I can appreciate that, all right? I understand your cause. But I can't operate under, they told this somebody. There's nothing for me to do there. There's no way for me to deal with that type of problem. So if I have specifics, we deal with the specifics. But if it becomes a he said, she said, or a they and them, I have no ability to do anything with that.
I can give you plenty of specifics, and like I say, the main thing is a parvo dog should never, a dog that's diagnosed as parvo should never be taken back to the county kennel.
Absolutely.
Do you agree,
I
Commissioner
agree,
Kukowski?
100%,
I mean,
100%.
Commissioner Kukowski knows what parvo's like. She knows how contagious it is. And then the other thing, I was talking, you want specifics? Okay, I was there Saturday. Let's see, today is the 12th, so what would last Saturday have been? The 7th, about noon. And I was there talking with Gennaro, and who's now the acting dog warden, now that dog warden Zimpla is on medical leave. And we were talking about procedures and protocols that should be followed for parvo dogs. And I told him, I said, if you guys pick up a dog or handle a dog that has bloody feces or vomit on it from parvo, that the uniform should be changed, or that person should no longer work there that day until they get clean uniforms on. And what, you want specifics? Here's a specific. Gennaro told me that he was not allowed to send home community service workers because he was not allowed to by the administration.
Well,
And so-
I've never
so-
heard we got to send them home and get them changed and sanitized. There's certain things we can't do. All right, there's just certain limits we have. And one of the things, I can't send community service workers home to change and come back.
Well, you can't necessarily make them come back, but you can just give them the rest of the day off.
No, I can't. They're sentenced by the courts to community service. They have to do their community service.
Well, can you have them do something else, like clean the parking lots? I mean, you don't want them to be infecting other dogs. I mean,
We can't, well,
can we talk with you in detail about this?
I can tell you what we can do and what we can't.
Because, I mean, I don't want, maybe we don't want air dirty laundry or whatever.
Well, I do, because
public.
we do, and that was part of this presentation, and we knew this was gonna happen, because, you know, we get inundated with these things, and sometimes they become quite insultive in their delivery, and we're doing what we believe is proper within the constraints of the rules, regulations, and the things that we're required by law to do, and you're asking us to step outside those things sometimes. We cannot send people home to get changed during the day and insist they come back. We have civil service laws, we have revised code laws, we have collective bargaining laws, we have court-ordered workers, and all those things have to fit. And sometimes I think while we need to walk in your shoes, you need to come to this side of the table and walk in our shoes for a while and see what we have to deal with on this side. It's very easy to sit in the armchair and throw the football. It's really hard to get out there and play the game.
Well, like you said, Mr. Cortez, you know, I've known you for a long time. I know you're a very bright person. I know Mr. Ennis. I know the county commissioners. You know, looking at this a positive light, I think that the five of you run this county. I know you run this county, and I think you're very bright people. I would think that you could come up with some solution. Don't you agree, Ms.
Should
Commissioner
be,
Kukowski?
yeah.
Isn't there some
Actually,
way that
being-
we
the
can
dog
keep?
pound should not be rocket science. It should be very simple. Keep the cages clean, keep the dogs fed, try to get as many dogs adopted. It's not rocket science, really.
I mean-
As long as, but Mr. Cortez did bring up a good point. You know, sometimes we do have community service workers over there that don't care about the dogs, and it's unfortunate. And they're not trained in how to do certain things, and we don't have a whole lot of control over those people. And we sometimes have lack of management. Right now, you know, the dog warden's out, and you know they're probably stretched kind of thin over there. And even sometimes when he's there, there's some lack of management. So we are faced with some serious things, and I want to do all that we can to prevent dogs from acquiring parvo, especially within our own kennel. Sometimes we can't help it. They get there with it.
Yeah, sometimes they come in it, and like I say, if you guys want specifics, me and my board would be more than happy to meet with you guys for as long as you want and talk about these procedures.
But if you want to get back to your, I'll try to refrain my questions until the end of your presentation, so I don't get we don't get off on a tangent here.
Okay, we'll quickly talk about past progress, current concerns, and then, you know, solutions proposed. Okay, you know, we're truly grateful for some of the things that Mr. Cortez and the county commissioners have done over the years. The transfer program and the hiring of the medical director, I mean, it has, the medical director, Dr. Wood, has you know, gone over there twice a week, and he has fixed a lot of dogs, and I know that the dog warden has taken a lot of dogs to Fox Veterinary, you know, in cooperation with Dr. Wood. So the medical treatment has improved quite a bit over there. And this transfer program saves over 100 lives a year. We figure right around 100 lives. We're just truly grateful for this. As far as the better health and welfare of the dogs, I know Commissioner Kukowski was very instrumental in getting, and the whole board, you know, agreed to it. New larger cages in the main area. Those are very, very nice. Thank you. and the outdoor runs. You know, now families can actually go there. They can play around. Their kids can play ball with the dog. They can walk around, you know, just have fun with it. That's really nice. That's a big improvement. And the new kennel hours are allowing more people to adopt dogs, you know, because some people like myself, I work 9 to 5, you know, if I had a dog loose, well, I mean, I would take off work because I'm passionate about the dogs. You guys know that. But, you know, some people find it very hard. Some people can't easily take off at 9 to 5 to go get their dog out. So the new kennel hours are very nice. Implementation of the petfinder.com. We appreciate you guys allowing us to go over there, take pictures of the dogs, put them on Pet Finder. Sometimes we give a lot of times anymore, we actually give the pictures to the county. Sometimes they give us pictures too, the county staff. And so we share pictures so we don't have to take 2 pictures of every dog. And I'm sure that has increased the number of adoptions that we have. And the spay and neuter program, that's been a big benefit too. I think that it's reduced the number of dogs coming in there, and it certainly, you know, prevents more litters from being born. Okay. The current concerns over there, like I say, I'm going to try to be positive in everything here, but the fact is these pound keeper records, you know, I had to point out in June that the pound keeper's records have been grossly incomplete starting with November. I mean, really, the dog warden should know what's going on at the kennel. I shouldn't have to point out to him that these official pound keeper's records are incomplete. And so we really need somebody to make sure that these daily functions, to clearly talk to all the staff and tell them what their daily functions are, and then somebody to make sure on a daily basis that these functions are carried out.
I want to stop you there. I've just sent for Ms. Hobart. I sent her out there. You know, once again, we do take what's said to us and do take a look at it to see if there is an issue. Too many times where people don't realize that because they don't get the outcome they want. I'm going to have Ms. Hobart come in because I sent her out there to examine all those records and do an audit. And while I realize you want to go through your presentation, I just can't allow accusations to be put out there without being responded to, because we've spent an extensive amount of time reviewing those records. I haven't really had a chance to speak to her yet on that, so there may very well be something here, but I want her to come in and speak to what she did with regard to that. And I just sent Mr. Twining out. So if we can go a little further, but when she comes in here, come back to that, I would be very
Sure.
appreciative. Thank you.
And then there's consistent unidentified medical problems with the dogs. Like I say, I thank you guys for getting the medical director, but you know, he'll also be quite happy to tell you he only goes out there typically twice a week. And I don't want to go over all the details unless, you know, Mr. Cordes, you have questions and want to go over them. But, you know, we sent you the letter about the collie, and I have, you know, all the dates and stuff of the information we sent here. There was a collie that was paralyzed, and it was put into a cage. You know, we have pictures of it and everything. It was put into a cage paralyzed. It couldn't get up to eat or drink. Was laying in its own, you know, urine and feces for over 24 hours before it was discovered by the volunteers. Now, I know the staff over there. I know them well. I've been going there for 5 years. I know they wouldn't intentionally neglect a dog. But the thing is, it's just a matter of what we're getting at. We're, you know, not want to make this about people. We want to make it about standard operating procedures. There's no standard operating procedure for anybody to do any type of assessment of the dog when it goes in there, because if it was, they would have uncovered this. And then it was uncovered by our volunteers in the afternoon.
You're alleging that somebody brought a paralyzed dog in and put it in a cage and left it there.
They did.
Yeah, I mean, I've got pictures of it.
I'm just, wait a minute, I'm asking, I have a continuation of the question. Is the possibility that the dog wasn't paralyzed when they brought it in and then it became that way in the kennel? Because I can't imagine a dog warden carrying a dog in paralyzed and putting it in a cage without dealing with it. I'm not disputing it, I'm asking, okay? Because I know that
Carol
sometimes,
Brailer was there.
Yeah, Carol, Carol, you
Wait.
have to come to the microphone. You can't talk from back there. And you need to put your, state your name and address for the record first.
My name's Carol Brailer. I live at 2474 Homewood Drive in Lorain. I was there when that collie was there, and when they did take it to the vet, after it being told to them, the vet, Dr. Fox, identified the dog as having muscle atrophy from having a poor rear end for quite a while. And that dog literally, I had to, when I got up to that dog, I had to lift its head so it could eat or drink when I put water there, and it readily ate and drank. It had been laying there getting weak and dehydrating from lack of care.
Yeah, I mean,
my question was, you made a statement that they brought it in paralyzed. My question
Well-
was, could it have, I heard the word you said, atropine,
The muscles had
right,
atrophied from
atrophied.
lack of use.
Okay, but
according
so-
to the vet that your kennel staff took the dog to.
yeah, the dog warden, Jack Zumpa, read me over the report. He called me at work, read the report from Fox Veterinary to me, and he said that he was talking with Dr. Fox, and that the vet said that his muscles have been atrophied. That this injury happened a long time ago.
Right, and actually, again, it's more of a question.
I did not see them bring the dog in,
Right,
but I know it did not move one bit from the time
We had
it came.
pictures.
and again, the question is a little bit simpler.
He's just asking the question to get it
Okay,
processed.
because your statement was they brought a paralyzed dog in and put it in a kennel, and I find that hard and difficult to fathom. I asked if it could have been that the dog may have been suffering coming in, and it may have been weak coming in, and they may have put it in a cage and left it there, and then they didn't pay enough attention to it, and it didn't receive attention. I just can't understand them carrying a dog in that condition and putting it in a cage and walking away. And your statement was that they put a paralyzed dog in there, and I'm trying to bring the statement more back into focus, which may have what occurred, that we had a weak dog coming in that had potential injuries already, that had difficulties. It got put into a cage, it went into stress, which amplified the problems it already had, and it probably couldn't move in the cage. And I'm not disagreeing with that, and I'm not disagreeing with the pictures. It's just that an embellishment is that they put a paralyzed dog in the cage. And that's where we start taking different directions when we try to deal with these problems. So I'm going to ask again, is it your allegation that the dog warden had a paralyzed dog and put it in the cage and left it there? Or did the dog experience difficulties once in the cage?
Okay, I understand your question, Mr. Cortez, and we can't perhaps necessarily prove, and maybe you're right, it's a good point. It's possible that the dog, possible, not likely, but it's possible that the dog wasn't paralyzed when they put the dog in, but certainly, according to Dr. Fox, the dog had this condition for a very long time, according to the vet, had a severe condition. Right. And so, at the minimum, they probably knew when they brought the dog in that
It was under stress.
Well, it's a lot more than stress. I think they would have had to know that the dog was in very bad condition. They might, like I said, I know they don't do things over there out of, greed or they don't do things over there to be mean. They care about the dogs, but they had to know that the dog had some type of severe medical problem. They might not have known it was paralyzed. They might have just thought it was real weak. They might have thought it got,
Right.
Might have had an injured leg. They had to know it was severely injured, but they might not have known it was paralyzed.
And you and I are 100% on the same page that the dog should have been reviewed and it should have been sent out for medical treatment. That's why we have that fund. I just want to be careful how we phrase what occurred. That's all I'm
Yes,
asking. That's all I'm
and
asking.
I fully agree with you, and I'll be happy to
Because that dog should have went out for medical treatment. You and I have talked, a couple pictures we've seen where dogs should have went out for medical treatment, and we have the money for that, because we put that money aside to do that specific. So I'm not arguing your saying that the dog should have received medical treatment. It should have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the thing I would like to stress, Mr. Cortez, and I really you know, you brought up some good questions, and I'd like to really hear exactly your assessment on the record here. Do you think, and I know there might be some issues with personnel and staffing, but do you think a dog or all the dogs should be given a brief assessment when they come in, like a 2 or 3 minute assessment?
Yes,
like most
every
of
one
the-
of them should.
Thank you.
There's no doubt about that. And we do have in our SOP that the dog is supposed to be looked at, and the warden is supposed to make a determination on the dog on a few levels. Now, I don't want to do the big assessment for adoption, you know, where it goes into whether the dog should be adopted, not adopted because of tendencies and et cetera. It's a little bit more complicated, and you need more trained staff to do that. I have looked into this over the years. You kind of forced me to, Rick, so I had a little bit of knowledge to be able to deal with you guys, and that's a good thing. But I do want them to make a medical assessment if the dog is having difficulties. This Board of Commissioners has told me to make sure that those things occur at the pound, and I've made the instructions that the dog should be looked at, and the dog should be looked at on a regular basis. And on a regular basis, somebody should be walking through that kennel, looking at the animals that are there, and seeing if they've gone into stress. I'm very concerned that they get there already in a negative condition because most of them are strays and they've been out wandering and they haven't been properly nourished and taken care of. So they get there stressed already, and then they go into more stress, which is amplified by, you know, the being in that kennel. And that should be happening. And I know that it's not happening with the regularity that we want as an administration up here, and we've been trying to deal with that. I want to go back again. I wasn't trying to be pugnacious when it came to the statement. I just want to make sure that we're not giving the public the impression that we're carrying in crippled dogs, dropping them in a cage. That doesn't mean what occurred should have occurred the way it did. But yes, we want every dog assessed before it's placed in a kennel in a cage, or shortly thereafter if nobody's there to do it at the time that they come in. But recognize on the weekends the cities bring in animals and they leave them there, and sometime before we get there to get to them. Although now with budget constraints, the city of Lorain lost their warden, so we'll be patrolling over in Lorain. There's not many areas that animals are going to be coming into the facilities that we're not picking up. So that gives us a little bit tighter control on being able to deal with those animals on the weekends and shutdown times.
Yeah, you know, I realize that there are a lot of difficult, you know, things by the Ohio Revised Code 955 that you have to follow, and it's not an easy job. And, you know, I think that for the last 4 years since our group has been in existence, I think it's been a win-win-win situation for the county, the group, and the dogs. And, you know, I would like to continue that. And I'm sorry there's a little bit of
Yeah, I would have no problem with a form, and I think that the instructions been given out there to have it, where there's a little checklist of the animal when it comes in, that certain things are checked off. I don't think that that's a hard job to do, and I think it's very easy. We have failed at some point to do that with a certain amount of continuation. When we talk about it, it goes on for a while and then it ends. Let me
Like everything.
let me read, if I can, let me redirect our attention back to the records. I see Ms. Hobart has come in, and after one of your letters, Rick, the board did instruct me to take a look at this. I asked Ms. Hobart to go out and go through these records to see if we were having some difficulty in that area. And we have not spoken on that since that occurred, so this is going to be the first time I'm hearing this information too.
What we found in the records, we checked financial-wise. It seemed that every report that was being filled out was accounted for in the county's financial system as far as receiving monies. And we spot checked according to the time period that you had, we spot checked. And we did notice in our report that probably there should be a better record keeping out there of dogs in and dogs out. But every record that we looked at, we were able to go back and find that the disposition of that dog. Currently, we are exploring better ways to, we have put the word out to other counties to ask how they do it, and we're exploring different ways. I'm looking at possibly tracking every dog on a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet in and out with a better description of the dog and things like that. So we are looking into definitely better record keeping out there. But as far as financial-wise and what we checked, we accounted for everything.
Okay, I think, like you say, there were about 20 dogs a month that had no disposition in the official pound keepers records, and I'm glad that you, you spotted some of that and that you think it ought to be improved, because we do too. I mean, we move on.
Thank you, Lisa.
And like I was saying too here, that, we do want to work with you guys, and we think it's a win-win situation. I think if we get some more, and I'm glad, Mr. Cortez agrees and wants to have a standard operating procedures for intake assessment, because I really think, a lot of the problems that the county commissioners faced, and you're very busy people, and I know Mr. Cortez has multi-million-dollar contracts, he doesn't really need to be faced with all these problems all the time. I think if we get some standard operating procedures in place, make sure that the dog warden checks to make sure they're followed on a daily basis, and he reports to Ron or Jim, that I think it'd make your life a lot easier too. A lot of times when we talk with the county kennel employees, and things don't happen, they would tell us it's not part of their job description, and most of the functions that occur over there are not on any of the job descriptions. I was given copies of the job description before, and we just think that all the employees at the county kennel should have their job descriptions, should have them revised and added their standard daily duties to them, so that when their trouble comes up, it would be shown that they're part of the job descriptions, and we think that the dog warden ought to talk to all of them about what their job descriptions are.
I'd like
Personally,
Mr. Cortez to address that.
I personally went out there and had I would call it a conversation of adhesion. That is, I spoke and they listened without comment. And I have individually spoken to some of the employees from that kennel. Everything is in their job description. Job descriptions, they have a job classification, and of course that's a union issue also. So it's not as easy as rewriting it and handing it to them. All right, we got a collective bargaining agreement out there. They have not been asked to do anything, nor have they been instructed to do anything that would not fit into their job classification. That is a bunch of bunk from them, and they've been warned about that. And and they also have been told that if they have a problem with what they're asked for, they do it, and they grieve later. Even their union rep, I got to give a little credit there, has told them, if you don't believe you're supposed to be doing what you're doing, you do it unless it places you into any peril, and then you grieve. And then we'll sort that out through the grievance procedure, which is well defined in our collective labor contract. So if they're telling you that, they're inaccurate. I can believe they told you that, though. I hear it around here myself.
Well,
to supervisors.
I'm glad that you understand what's happening, because, like I say, once, a few years ago, they told me that wasn't their responsibility to clean kennels, and they showed me a job description, but then when I got one from Commissioner Kukowski in the administration building here, it clearly stated in their job description that they were supposed to clean kennels, but they told me that they weren't supposed
Rick, I've been
to.
here off and on now 16 years. And for 16 years, deputy dog wardens have been cleaning cages. I was amazed to hear it was almost a year ago when we talked about the job thing and going into the last several months. I was amazed to hear all of a sudden they didn't think it was their job to do after all those years. So did they tell you that? They may have. Were they accurate? No, they weren't. Were they spoken to after we heard that? Yes, they were.
Thank you. And then the other thing is here, the proper communication between staff members, volunteers, and potential adopters. I mean, I know they're only human over there. They're going to make mistakes occasionally, but they've been making way too many mistakes where we have potential adopters talking to people, like the one from the Great Lakes Rhyme Rescue, which happened at the county fair time. And I realize that the dog warden, was at the county fair, and so that, they're a little bit short-staffed there. But this woman called up from Great Lakes Rhyme Rescue, her and her her other rescue people, and they talked several times with the people at the kennel, told them they were going to drive all the way down from Michigan Saturday morning to adopt this dog. They understood there was a policy of first come, first serve, and the kennel would adopt that dog out if somebody wanted to adopt it before they got down here from Michigan. But the woman drove all the way from Michigan, got up something like 4 o'clock in the morning, drove 5 or 6 hours from Michigan down to the kennel, and I happened to be there when she was there, and she asked the kennel if she could take the dog. They told her they put it to sleep, even though she had several phone calls with the kennel, on that Thursday. And so this happens, unfortunately, about once a month.
It did happen. I have communicated with the people in Michigan. I did have multiple kennel staff up to my office to discuss this because I was very upset with this, and I was not able to gain the attention that I thought I needed from the staff members, so I have actually assigned an investigator to this who is completing an investigation, hasn't been completed, and once I have that investigation done, I think that there's going to be some additional outcomes that are going to be necessary. This shouldn't have happened. We failed. I'm not completely sure who and where it failed. That's why I'm waiting on the investigation. Once again, we got due process, civil service, collective bargaining, et cetera. Ron just told me that we should have the report on that issue soon. And subsequent to that, I had a discussion with the board where each one of the commissioners, when I talked to them, had informed me that they would support a policy of working with the rescue groups that we can hold certain animals for them. Rather, I don't like the auction. I don't like the way it's going. I've never liked it. I think it stinks.
Yeah, we think
okay.
It stinks too, if you want to be quite frank.
But so the board has agreed that we can work out a procedure where if somebody is saying, calls in and says, look, if nobody's available to adopt that dog, we would like it, can you hold it? We'll make out some arrangements on that. Much like the medical evaluation form that I asked be done when we got a veterinarian on board so that our wardens were trained to tick off 5 or 6 early warning signs of an animal in distress. We're supposed to be coming up with a procedure for that reserving of an animal. The one thing I haven't been able to work out clearly in my mind, and let's be candid because I think you'll probably understand that this happens, everybody has desirable animals out there, and most of the rescue groups, for the biggest part of them, go after the most desirable animals. Most of them do, all right? I have no problem with collies and shepherds or golden retrievers, but the ugly junkyard mutt we seem to have a bit of a problem with. I see a couple heads shaking no, and I would love to work with you on that, okay? But I want to have a practice where if the dog isn't going to be adopted and a rescue group shows an interest in it, that we'll figure out how to let them be adopted. Whether that is we open it up for open adoption for, say, 3 days. And if it hasn't been adopted in those 3 days and a rescue group has shown an interest, then we reserve that dog for the rescue group. I don't want to limit the ability of Lorain County residents to adopt a desirable pet. But at the same time, I don't want to see that potential pet put down because nobody's adopted it and the rescue group hasn't been contacted. So we're working on that issue, and the board has given me instruction with regard to how they want to deal with that.
Yeah, and the Friendship APL tells me they've had a little bit of communication with Commissioners Kukowski and Kalo and stuff, and I know they're taking some dogs from Portage County now because they can't get enough out of here. And I know that stuff can be worked out, and I imagine you're working that, stuff like that. But yeah, I think it would be nice if we could get more dogs somehow there. And I know there are a lot of details to work out, and yeah, I'd appreciate it if you guys could.
Well, I just don't want to see, I don't want to see dogs going to that free-for-all lottery, drawing, and if somebody identifies and they come in, I want to have a reserve policy. If they're the first one there and the dog's been there a day, and they say when that dog's available, I want it, I think first in, first served. I don't want to say, oh, you can't have it, and then have 9 people beating each other up in the lobby while we're trying to draw tickets, which obviously we had a problem with that also.
Yep.
A while back that we've dealt with pretty swiftly. But we can only send down so many mandates, and hopefully they're followed. And but that's being worked on as we speak.
I'm sure that you guys, have considered many options with that. I know some of the counties, I'm not saying it's the best option, but some of the counties actually have different prices for purebreds, Some of them, most of them get them, like fixed too, but some of them will charge $50, $90, over $100 for a purebred. So that would be one way to cut down on, having.
I would be very happy just to get them adopted, okay?
We'd be happy to get them adopted too.
It's not a matter of raising additional revenue, and it may become that way sooner or later. It's just a matter of following the policies that we have in place, because I think some of these things, when we bring people back into a tight, controlled environment and following the SOPs, we have less problems. Over time, though, people tend to broaden their thinking. I was very upset with the issue with Michigan. I'm waiting for the investigation because non-policy people were making policy and telling people things that were contrary to what the leadership should have been telling them. And that's when you run into a lot of problems.
And then it's just a lack of common sense, lack of communication. I mean, like I said, is it rocket science? No, maybe a sticky note on a cage, rescue groups coming from Michigan to pick up this dog on Saturday. It's simple, it's easy, and you almost don't even need policy and procedure for common sense issues like that. Just a note on the cage would have sufficed.
But the thing is, if they've been told though 5 times and they
Right.
haven't done it, then maybe you need something in writing to make sure that they do it the next time.
Or
I
it's
don't
a
know, Commissioner.
disciplinary issue at that point.
I guess Commissioner Kalo basically, described what I was talking about here with, with this next slide, some sort of summarized that we just need to make sure that these, daily functions are performed daily. And, I realize that Mr. Cortez is very busy and he can't be down there all the time, but the head of the department needs to check and make sure they're done on a daily basis, and he needs to inform Mr. Cortez or Mr. Twining if they're not done, and, hold them accountable and make sure they're done the next time. So anyhow, as you see on slide 8, basically we were recommending that there be standard operating procedures, and we discussed a lot of these things already. Document and complete journals of all incoming and outgoing dogs or adopted dogs, so that's the pound keeper's record. So Ms. Hobart, I think, said that financially the records were good, but they were lacking on this other thing about documenting the disposition of dogs. I don't think there's any wrongdoing or anything going on there, but with like about 20 dogs missing a month, you don't know where they're gone. Like I say, I don't think that there's any problem there, but it just really should have a disposition of all dogs handy. It seemed like, according to Ms. Hobart, that once she dug into a lot of other records, they were able to find out what happened to the dogs, but it should be on the official pound keeper's record.
I want to get a clarification of what you said.
I don't believe that those were my words that I said. We spot checked a lot of records, and when we would look at the pound keeper's records, we were able to go back and find out when that dog was adopted. Yes, there does need to be maybe a better record-keeping system out there. One thing I did want to add was the report that you gave us, the way that you coded is not the way that we code things in our financial system, and as far as the way that we keep track of things over here too. So it was kind of difficult to work with the two, but I don't believe I said that anything was unaccountable out there. I think we do need a better way of keeping track of the records.
I guess, to be more specific, I'm saying the pound keeper's records are very incomplete. But you were saying that when you noticed, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what you were saying is that you could look at the incomplete parts of the pound keeper's records and go find the information in other forms. Is that what you're saying?
We found we spot checked from the period that you were concerned about, which was March. I have it in here somewhere.
Well, from November of 2008 until
Through
around
March,
March,
correct.
the official pound keeper's records, I'm talking about the ones prescribed by the Bureau of Supervision and Management. The official pound keeper's records had over 20 dogs a month typically without any disposition checked.
But when we went through and spot checked every dog that we saw in that pound keeper's record, we were able to track it back to what happened
But
to
what,
it.
if I understand you correctly, you're saying that the disposition wasn't always listed on the pound keeper's records, but you were able to go find other forms? Because
No,
the disposition was not listed for about 20 dogs a month.
Then I would be more than willing to sit down with you and you show me exactly what you're referring to, because when we spot checked for that period of time, and like I said, no, we didn't go every day. We picked a couple days each week, different weeks.
When do you want to
We kinda went
sit
back
down
and
and
forth.
let me show you the records? I have them all at home.
I mean, when we found, we looked at it, we were able to track it back to this dog was adopted on this day and the monies came in on that day and the monies were deposited. But I think the way that you have things coded in your reporting does not match the way that it's reported here. So it was kind of difficult to,
Let me do this, because we go back and forth. I'd like that meeting to occur, and I'd like to have a report back so I can discuss it with the commissioners at a future date. It's hard, I don't know how we can reconcile fiscal audits if we can't reconcile disposition of animals, because the disposition has a direct correlation and relationship to the income at the pound. So we have to know what the disposition of those animals is, so that we can be able to properly account fiscally. So I think you guys are talking similar things, but I'd like that meeting to occur, and this way I can let you move on, Ricky.
Okay, thank
Lisa,
you.
make sure you get your information so
Absolutely.
that we can, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so, Mr. Cortez, I believe you said, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I think you said earlier, though, that you thought it would be a good idea to do intake evaluations, brief ones.
Excellent idea.
Okay.
Those words you can put in my mouth.
Well, I want to make sure I'm just saying what you said. Okay. And then number 3, I guess that, like I said, you got a inquisition or you got some investigation going on for the case of the Wyme rescue in Michigan, and you're looking into ways or something, like Commissioner Kukowski said, to make sure that dogs that are spoken for, like confirmed people, those dogs aren't put to sleep accidentally. Okay. What about, so say like if a dog goes into the kennel and it's healthy, but then it gets real sick a day or two later. Right now, and I know that you only have one of the kennel keepers, and thank you guys for doing that. I think that was a very smart move and a very big improvement, having these part-time kennel keepers. I know you only have 1 of 2 of them now. Judy's there, and the other one was terminated for whatever reason. But it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cortez, but it seems like there's nobody, and maybe you've set somebody responsible for it, but maybe they're just not doing it. But it seems to me like somebody should check every morning, go through those cages and make sure there's no dog in medical need. And they should maybe have
I
like
agree.
a checklist.
I agree. Jack Zemper's out, or I would have had him here for this presentation, and I would have had him stand here and let us know what's done and what's not done. It's unfortunate we had you guys scheduled. I know people had to make their plans to be here, and he's out on a medical issue, and I can't talk further about it under law, or I get taken out back and shot.
Oh, let's talk about it.
But I have instructed, and I thought it was being done, and I now know that it's not, that there is a checklist on these animals and there's a walkthrough. It's not a big place. You can go from end to end of it in about 15 minutes looking in each kennel to see how each dog is doing there. So, I know I asked that our medical director make out that sheet of 4 or 5 reasonable little things that can be ticked off, and I'm going to have to find out why it's not getting done, and I'm going to believe that it's not getting done because you're bringing it up.
Yeah, like the fair time in 2005, I proposed one, I gave it to the dog warden, and he came up with one of his own, which we thought was very good, a quick assessment.
Was he using it?
Well, that's the thing. It basically hasn't been used. And so, there are a lot of reasonable forms, and we're not asking for the world. We're just asking for a quick assessment.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
I guess you can read these other things, and maybe we can talk about them offline, but just, we thought maybe it would be better to document a little bit more the roles and responsibilities of the medical director, and we thank you guys for appointing the medical director, and there's been a lot more dogs given medical attention than before. But we thought it might be handy, since things are going along, and, he's been a medical director for a few years, to document a little bit more what the roles and responsibilities are, so that when these dogs come up like this, that we know more what could be, taken care of and what can't be taken care of. And I know sometimes it's difficult, but we think that we should really have more training for the staff and the community service, because a lot of times trained workers are better workers, and, I guess we'll just leave it at that. So we think the benefits of these proposed solutions are that you'd really have less public scrutiny, less negative media attention, with the county and the kennel. We think that it could get additional revenue realized via more adoptions if we get, better procedures and protocols for handling dogs that have parvo. That way can have fewer dogs, contract parvo while they're at the kennel. And that way, we could get more of these rescue groups to start coming back and get more dogs adopted. I know everybody in this room, or at least almost everybody, would think that's a great thing to get more dogs adopted. I don't think there anybody who would be against it. And I think it'd be, better for the kennel staff if the head of the department out there would talk with them, however often it's necessary. Like Mr. Cortez said, they've been explained their job descriptions, and the union rep, according to Mr. Cortez, told them that, basically if it didn't hurt their health, they ought to be doing whatever they're asked to by the dog warden. I think that it'd be good for the dog warden, whenever there seems to be any problem, if it takes it, do it, once a month or once a week, to tell them what their duties are, because a lot of times, it's like, oh, well, it's not in our job description to clean cages, that kind of stuff. And so, they should be doing that. So, we've worked with the county for like 5 years now. We're willing to personally meet with you, and, Mrs. Hobart can call me, or I can give her a call, and we can go over these records. We're willing to meet with you guys as much as possible, or not as much as possible, as much as needed to work out some of these issues. So I guess maybe right now, since we've talked about a lot of them as we've come along, we don't maybe need to talk about them as much here at the end, but I was just wondering, Mr. Kalo, Commissioner Kalo, I know you've talked and helped out our group and worked with us a lot, earlier. I was wondering what your assessment was of some of these things, and
Yeah, you and I like to talk at 6:30 in the morning. So, yeah, they're all viable ways of solving some of the problems, and we've talked. It's just a matter of some of the staff and issues that we have to deal with that you're aware of. We've talked about this before. I don't think it's anything that's monumental, can't be achieved. It's just a matter of, I'm sure whatever we do is not going to make your group 100% happy. Right?
No,
She's sure, right. But if we do improvements in some of the areas that are here, and I think we've done a lot in the 5 years. I mean, this board, since it's been together, has done a lot of different things, and the spay and neuter program you brought up, working with the APL, I think we've built a lot of good relationships, and previously, the animal groups didn't have with the Board of Commissioners. We've always listened. We always take the phone calls. We try to address them as we can. And not to minimize the dog kennel, but there's also a lot of other major issues going on in the county that we have to deal with. So we take them one by one as we can. And like I said, we brought our budget director into overseeing our paperwork and records that you question. And again, she does a very good and thorough job. So I mean, I think there might be some crossover. Maybe the staff at the kennel isn't doing the official pound keeper records properly, but through investigation we can find where the dogs are, because I don't believe there's any, misuse of funds or any thievery out there. I really don't believe that.
I don't believe that either.
So I mean, it's a matter of working through each and every issue. You guys just have to be one of our more vocal constituencies that we have to deal with. So, and I.
But we're
mean that.
also one of them that helps at the parades,
Correct,
too.
exactly. Yes, you do. You show up for all the parades. We appreciate that. And I believe we're adopting a lot more dogs than we ever have in the past.
Yes.
With a lot less euthanizations, and I think as we go forward, it will continue to improve. But again, there's limited funds. We have raised the adoption fee. I mean, we have raised everything we possibly can by Ohio Revised Code to put more money into the kennel. And you've seen it, you've worked with us through that process, making sure there are notifications getting out. I remember 3-4 years ago, we had the issue with funding to get out not only the license request, but the reminders that you didn't do your license, which was quite a cluster we went through for 6 months there. I mean, we're working through it, and nobody means any offense to anyone. We're not doing anyone. I mean, I've got at home 3 dogs, 2 cats, 2 fish. So, I mean, we're all pet people here. We all have something, that we look toward this being a better process. But, again, it takes time and staff. And as you're well aware of, the county is way down with staff. We're down 17 people in the commissioner's office. Due to layoffs last year, looking at more this coming year with the failure of issue 4. So there are less people doing a lot more work, just trying to keep up with what we have to by revised code, we're required to do. So it's not that we're ignoring you or not trying to deal with your issues, we just have a lot less people doing it now. I mean, we've got our budget director that used to have 4 people in the department, now down to 2, and taking on additional responsibility of researching the records here. So I mean, we're working on it. So, I mean, we are going to move forward on it, but Rick, I will probably ask you, because we've got a really important meeting at 11 o'clock, the Investment Advisory Committee, to see how bad our revenues are, the investment income, if you can wrap it up for us, and no offense to everybody, but it's a really important meeting going forward with doing our budgeting for 2010.
All right,
So,
we're almost done. Michelle Reichman of Fido's Companion Rescue, she's part of UFAJ, and she pulls probably like 40 to 60 dogs out a year from our kennel. Michelle, did you want to add anything to this?
Michelle Reichland, 36128 Haverford Place, Avon, Ohio. I started rescuing out of the Lorain pound in 2003, early 2003, and been running a nonprofit rescue since 2005. And the focal point of the rescue is to pull out of the Lorain County kennel because it is in our backyard. So, a couple of things, and not to be redundant, but a few of the things, just to mention here is that through the years, I've been hesitant to speak publicly because it is my belief to work through the appropriate channels, to work behind the scenes with the people at the kennel facility, to build a rapport with them, and to be able to do what's in the best interest of the dogs. This is not about my ego, it's not about their ego, it's not about your ego. So it's about the best interest of the dog. Unfortunately, at this point, knowing that a lot of the issues that Mr. Kalo just addressed have not been just recent issues that have come to light since we've been in this horrible economic situation, okay? These have been long-standing, pervasive problems that have lasted through the years, and it's when different wardens have been in place. I mean, I worked with Mr. Tom Majoris, the interim person in the in that transition period, Mr. Zlumpka, and also I want to say that it has been my direct experience that in working with the wardens in place and the deputies and the clerks, every single thing I have personally asked for to be done to work with my group to help a dog, to assist a situation, to make it better, has been done, and I've gotten response on from them. So, positive changes have been made at the pound. I very much appreciate the attention this new administration has given to it the last few years. But again, as Ms. Kakowski said, Commissioner Kakowski said, I don't think what we're asking for is an act of God or an act of Congress. We're asking for basic standard operating procedures to be put in place, and if they are in place, that's wonderful. People have to be held accountable to them.
Absolutely.
No different in the second generation manufacturing company I run today, and trust me, I understand in a very sensitive way, the plight of the local economy. My business is down 60% and we are struggling every day to survive. So I understand I've been stretched, and to be here today, I'm not meeting with my biggest customer. So what I'm trying to say is that I understand that this is not your number one priority. I don't expect it to be. But I expect that you guys give attention to this kennel running in an efficient, safe, and humane way. I don't think that is too much to ask of you guys, and I really believe that you guys want that at the end of the day. And I truly believe that the people who are at the pound, Gennaro, Nelson, you know, the crew of people there will rise to the occasion of the expectations that are set for them. And I can only say that through personal experience with them and what I have asked them to do and to assist me in situations where I know of a dog at the kennel that's in distress, or a dog that I need to be held a couple more days while I work out transport with an out-of-state rescue. These guys have risen to the occasion each and every time. Have they made mistakes? Yeah, I make mistakes too. I get it. I understand it. I'm not going to hold their feet to the fire. And understand too, Mr. Cortez, it's not my intention when I send a nice email, and I understand, I'm Leonard Reikland's firstborn granddaughter, so I understand the political arena. I understand growing up in a family with politics. But I also understand if I don't communicate with you guys clearly about what my expectations are as a citizen, as a business owner in the county, that there's no win-win to be had out of it. So I think it's my responsibility to speak to you guys directly. I'm not trying to be adversarial. Would never be my intention. And my intention is, I want to support you guys in the efforts. I don't expect this to cost a bunch more money. I don't expect this to cost you or you to have to be the doer of the work. But we have to have procedures that people are held accountable
But see,
for.
you know, we have a dichotomy here.
Okay.
You, and maybe rightfully so, I'm not exactly sure, but you've stood there and defended the very people that had to be the precipitator of the problems out there.
What I'm suggesting, Mr. Cortez, what I'm suggesting is that you guys are not holding them accountable.
Oh, we're holding them accountable, but it's
Okay.
very difficult to hold them accountable when we go out there and we take decisive action, and then you stand there and you go, well, they rose to the occasion, they're great people to work with. But it's got to be one or the other, it can't be both.
That's not exactly the case, because I'm telling you, when I have asked them to do something, it has happened. And so what I'm suggesting to you is that I believe if people are trained to standard operating procedures and understand that they're held accountable to them, and that, as Mr. Kalo said, there's consequences for not doing what's asked of them or what their responsibilities
I'll
are.
ask you directly, where do you think these problems begin? I'll give you my answer and I'll listen to your answer. They begin with the person doing the job. And they have been held accountable and there have been
If at my
consequences.
manufacturing company people are not doing their job, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to see that they do their job or they're removed from the position.
So, okay, there you go. You're out at the kennel more than I am. I don't, it's an important issue for me. I do concern myself with the animals.
I'm not suggesting you don't,
But I'm
Mr.
several
Cortez.
arms length from that kennel. And normally I mostly hear about something when I receive an email or an inquiry from a commissioner with regard to something that's gone wrong. It's not that I don't care about the operation, but it's a very small operation and I'm off with bigger issues. But I do stop what I'm doing at the bequest of the commissioners, and/or if I receive a personal email that is written reasonably, and I do try to look into the issues. And I think that you may have even talked back and forth on my personal email, because there was some things that went wrong. I'm not sure if it was you or somebody else. I get so many emails about the kennel, I can't remember. But the problem we have out there begins with an attitude of what Rick has indicated. It's not my job, or I don't have to do this, or it's not my job classification.
It
When-
may begin there, Mr. Cortez, but it doesn't, in my humble opinion, it doesn't end there, because at the end of the day, they have a responsibility, working in the facility, to do a job that you have set expectations for them to do.
And-
So as I said, in my manufacturing company, I take the responsibility of running that organization very seriously, and when people don't perform as I've laid out expectation and train them to perform, then unfortunately, and I understand you have a union to deal with, but they are disciplined or removed from that position because they cannot function effectively in that position.
I know you just got a couple minutes left. Does Commissioner Blair have anything to say about this?
Thank you for coming this morning, all of you. I believe discussion is always healthy. Sometimes it opens further doors of opportunities that were not present previously. And I want to thank you, Rick, for the manner in which you conducted your comments this morning.
Well, thank you, Ms.
You did a very nice job. And it's been a pleasure working with my two fellow commissioners on this issue because both are advocates for animals, and we've done things these past 5 years that we have not done in the past. So it's been good for everybody.
I look forward to working with you guys more.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you guys real quick, you all know about parvo, but I didn't know if you were aware of the H3N8. It's influenza for canines coming out, so there is going to be a vaccine for that. So we might want to do that at the dog kennel also, is to get the dogs immunized for that. And I met with the new director of the Animal Protective League, and I guess I was the first one to adopt a cage. You can adopt a cage for a cat for 6 months for $100, or you can adopt a cage for a dog for 6 months for $150. So I did the dog one because I'm a dog lover. I love cats too, but I like dogs
I don't think
even
Ronnie's
more.
going to like being in that cage.
But I just want to say, like, I know it's kind of been said already that, for the most part, the employees out there seem to like the dogs. I don't think a lot of times when these inexcusable and unacceptable things happen, not because they want to be mean, but maybe lazy or just not connected or whatever, having a bad day. And we just can't let that happen. And having dogs, I saw the pictures of the collie that was paralyzed in there. And just there's been things that are definitely unacceptable. And I'm glad that we have you guys out there helping and bringing some of these things to our attention so we could deal with them. And thank you, Rick, and all of you for coming today.
Commissioner, we had a call with regard to the parvo. In fact, this weekend we discussed that one of the animals that had been adopted out was taken to a vet and then subsequently found to have parvo. I actually instructed him to re-sanitize the kennel before the weekend, and also we were offered the ability for free parvo vaccinations, which I instructed Gennaro to work out finding somebody to do the vaccinations. Hopefully we could have our medical director do that. I'm not sure if I've gotten an answer to that with regard to the vaccinations.
Gennaro was told, we haven't gotten an answer. Who's going to give those?
Maybe he'll rise to the occasion. I'm just having a little pun. I assume that he will. I hope so, because this was last Friday, and we either can find somebody to do the vaccination, can't. And I also, when I got an email back from it, didn't have that instruction. I said, well, call the APLC if they'll be able to do the injection so that we can handle the issue with the parvo, because apparently we did have an animal come that was adopted that was diagnosed after the fact. So we have taken steps to deal with that. But I think our reaction time also needs to be a lot faster with regard to offering of, because there was a month of free parvo vaccinations for the animals there.
Other one.
The other one.
Jennifer Colt, 1515 West 12th, Lorain. I just want to say I understand the economy. Of course, I live in Lorain. I also run a business, self-employed. But I just want to make a comment that it doesn't take money to run an efficient, well-organized, safe, healthy environment.
Right.
Amen.
Actually, it's not part of our general fund. I don't know if you're aware that it's self-funding itself. So, I mean, really, it's not in that bad a shape over there as far as funding goes. So it's not a matter of money, like you said. It's a matter of people caring and going that extra mile to take care of these animals.
My comments were here, and they said the administration to handle. We're short-staffed
Right.
through our general fund
Right, like,
administration
yeah.
to address all. Okay.
But
two
the
different-
staffing over there, I mean, we can even afford to add another, we still need to put in another part-time pound keeper over there. One good thing is, I asked Terry Penna, who's the clerk over there, just to give me an idea of last year, the euthanizations over there were 48. She said so far this year they are 14. So that's good news. And hopefully you have the same kind of numbers. So this list does not include pit bulls, owner surrender dogs, injured or sick dogs, recommended to be euthanized by either Dr. Fox or Dr. Wood. So that's our goal, is to adopt as many dogs and euthanize as little as possible. So. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Cortez, do you have anything?
I think I've had more
Yeah,
than enough
you've had enough.
discussion, so
Let's cut him off.
I'll yield to Mr. Prosecutor.
Mr. Ennis?
As Commissioners, I do have still a couple of issues of pending litigation that I need to discuss with the Commissioners, so I would request an executive session with regard to those matters.
Commissioners report.
Just wanted to let everyone know that Ohio Attorney General Richard Cordray is going to be at the County Community College, Lorain County Community College on December 2nd from 5:30 to 7. For Ohioans struggling because of the economic scams and crimes, he's been really out on the forefront looking for these types of things. And if you're interested, you can contact Brian Royer. It's BRIAN.Royer at ohioattorneygeneral.gov. And I thought this was interesting. I had heard this before, and I wasn't sure if it was true or not, but it came through the sheriff's office, and Captain Drozdowski confirmed it. When you lock your car with your button, there is a way for people to get that code from your vehicle and get into your car while you're away. So you're better off to lock your car button with the lock button inside your car rather than with the remote. So just to FYI.
Commissioner, if, as your FYI, let me also add, and it was going on a couple of years ago, they were able to do that with your garage door opener too. Okay, so they're same thing with people. If you see people on your street sitting in a car, they can capture your opener.
Garage door
Especially
opener.
some people like those extended ones where they're coming down the road and they push it and the door opens. If somebody happens to catch your code, good luck. So that's something to be aware of also.
Okay. That's the end of my report.
Yeah, just been a busy week working on budgets and such. I'm sure we'll have a lot of dialogue going into the next month. I'd like to thank Lisa Hobart, our budget director, for all her help she's given me the past week. Also, congratulations, my son and his significant other delivered a grandson this week, Devin Jacob. He's doing well.
Congratulations.
So, good luck to them. That's it.
The Lorain National Bank hosted Dr. Ken Mayland, who is president of Clearview Economics, on Tuesday at a breakfast meeting, and he talked about the economy. It was very, very interesting. A couple comments that appeared in the Morning Journal. This is a quote: "Every recession ends. The evidence suggests that the recovery has started," according to Dr. Mayland. And it says, although a recovery seems to have started, problems remain. Spending on commercial real estate, including hotels, warehouses, and office buildings, has fallen for about a year and could continue falling through 2011 or even 2012, he said. Another challenge, and we need to ask our investment advisor about this, is the risk for inflation, since commodity prices have risen quickly this year after bottoming out at the start of 2009. Interest rates, which have been at historical lows, are likely to rise when the economy starts to gain traction. The question is only when and how much. And this was an interesting comment. Mayland expects manufacturing to improve in the coming year. And it only took him 2.5 hours to say that, with lots of charts, about 30 PowerPoints. You were there, Michelle?
No, I've heard him speak.
Yeah, he He's very good. And the other issue is a news release about the NRAC District 9 National Resource Assistance Council of Huron, Lorain, and Medina counties is announcing that we have $1.6 million available for round 6. Applications are available on the NRAC site, and a meeting will be held on January 29th to choose these eligible activities are the purchase of open space, acquisition of easements, construction of facilities as defined in the High Revised Code, preservation or restoration of green space, wetlands, natural habitat, and riparian corridors. If you need further information, please contact Joyce Parks in my office. She has all the info, and it's a worthwhile project. We've been doing it for several years. That's it.
Today we're supposed to have IEC at 11, board correspondence.
I move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion.
Gotcha.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Public comment.
Shirley R. Johnson, Overland. I am not an animal or a pet person, but I was very impressed by the turnout for this group and for the people who were spokespersons for it. Now I'd like to know, since I am interested in human beings, whether there are any such groups that are looking after the conditions in which we incarcerate or rest homes or homeless shelters and so on, and follow it through so responsibly as they have when they're with their particular interests, because we need that too.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Seeing none, I move that we go into the IEC meeting and executive session.
Second.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
This is our 10th barn. Nope, sorry. This is our 11th barn.
It got kind of boring watching the grass grow, so we thought we'd watch the paint dry.
Well, the Ohio Bicentennial Commission was born in 1995 by order of the Ohio General Assembly. They charged the commission with the duty of celebrating 200 years of Ohio history, culture, science, and the commission then began the task of planning a bicentennial celebration. The goal was always to include every Ohio county in the celebration, and to do that, it was a grassroots up instead of a top-down. It was more of a bottom-up approach to the bicentennial, starting with the communities. We couldn't tell Clark County what to do from Columbus, but Clark County could tell us what they had in mind for the bicentennial. So that was really the tack that we took when we sat down and said, how are we going to plan the bicentennial? The beginnings in each Ohio county was forming groups in each county, and that's where our regional people came in, and they helped kind of light the fire in each county for the bicentennial, and that was kind of hard back then. There was not a lot of kindling to light a fire for the bicentennial, as you can imagine, in 1997 and 1998. So we said, how can we get the word out? How can we spread the message of all things bicentennial. One of the original regional coordinators, her name is Nicole Moretti. Nicole is a wonderfully creative person from Meigs County, down in the Appalachian section of Ohio. They were at a meeting, and Nicole, out of the blue, said,
Barns make a lot of sense in my district. Can't you see this logo all over barns in rural counties all over Ohio?
And about the next thought everybody had in their mind was, great, how do we paint a barn?
The general consensus of the office was if we could figure out how to do it, we would try it. But I called paint stores and I called all these places, and nobody seemed to know how to do that anymore.
So Nicole took it upon herself to see if it could go. And she was in, I forget what town it was.
Barnesville. And was in the Chamber of Commerce in Barnesville, and somebody had to take a phone call. And like any good former journalist, I read the stuff on the desk while I waited, and one of them was a Barnesville Enterprise, and on the front cover of the Barnesville Enterprise was a beautiful barn Scott had painted.
In the photo was a picture of a barn, and on the barn was a logo of the Ohio State University, painted by, at that time, 19-year-old kid.
And I didn't know it, but my grandfather snapped a picture of it, and he took it to Barnesville and had it developed, and then he took it over to the Barnesville Enterprise. And I didn't know he was doing this, but they saw a picture of it and liked it well enough to put on the front page of the Barnesville Enterprise.
And she took that front page, she immediately called the Ohio Bicentennial office in Columbus and said,
I found him, he's real, and I'm in Barnesville.
It fell into place with Nicola coming down at the right time, because that barn of ours had been on the front page of the Barnesville Enterprise.
And with that, she went off to find our barn painter.
I think we ended up having conversations over the phone for the next month, on and off, and then finally I went up to Columbus, and we talked about doing one barn in every county in the state.
If you go back and look at our announcement of the project back then and the press releases, it was our goal was to paint at least one barn in each county. We didn't say we were going to do it because we didn't know if we were going to do it. We didn't know if Scott was going to do it. We didn't know if we wanted his logo on every barn. Was he good enough? Did he have the talent? Did he have the skills? Did he have what it took to travel from every county in Ohio? I mean, we're talking about a kid.
We had discovered Scott, and we decided that we wanted to attempt this and see how it worked out, and we chose an out-of-the-way barn in Belmont County so that we could try it, not necessarily directly in the public eye, see how it went, explore the possibilities.
The first barn was in Belmont County because that's the county I'm from, and I think we went ahead and did that since it was local and close for me, and I even helped pick out that barn. And in those days, we kind of had to go door to door to find barns because no one knew of it. And even to describe what we were doing, I think took a little time.
And at the end of 3 days, we decided it was good enough for local media. We wanted some improvement before we released it statewide, and if we would make a decision to do that, it might come at a later time. We invited all the local media, but the Wheeling Register was one of the papers that came. They took a fantastic picture of the barn, and they were proud of it. They put it up on the AP wire, and the next morning we were on the front page of the Cleveland Plain Dealer.
And that's kind of how it began. It began in a very, I'd like to say we were Madison Avenue geniuses and knew that sure we were going to have great media attention and barn groupies and all that has happened, but it was pretty hit and miss at that point. We didn't know how this project would pan out and if it would even be more than a one barn project. Nearly 2,000 barn owners have applied to have their barns receive the logo. Now we can't do 2,000 barns, we're doing one official barn in each county. So the selection criteria is, we have 3 things that we look for.
Barns that are made out of wood, ones that are in good condition, that makes my job a lot easier, and barns that are on a high traveled road so people can see them.
Each coordinator will go out and look at the barns that have applied to have the logo. In some counties it could be as few as 20. In others it could be as many as 50. But they will go out and actually look at the barn and see if it meets our criteria. The part of the project that's often overlooked is the part of the project that makes the project possible. That's the person working over my shoulder right now.
Well, when I was, growing up, I don't remember sitting in the classroom saying when I grew up I want to be a barn painter.
He just loves art of all kinds, and so he experimented, of course, on our barn. But we enjoyed everything that he did.
We could not do this without Scott Hagan. And not just because of his skill with a paintbrush. That's what everybody knows. I know Scott Hagan as a person. I've worked with Scott Hagan, and Scott Hagan has become my friend.
The story I always tell to everyone is this. I said a prayer for Scott when he got out of school, that God would find him something in art, because that's what his love was in art. So, with tears streaming down my face, I prayed for him to find something, and I never dreamed it would be this big. And this is what God did for Scott.
He is a wonderful ambassador for the state of Ohio, and really is our only true statewide ambassador. He travels to every county representing the Bicentennial Commission.
But the people everywhere seem to be really awesome people, really willing to help you. I remember needing directions on several occasions, and I remember a guy, I just pulled over and asked for directions, and then he said, I'll tell you what, you just follow me and I'll run you right down there. And I know he was busy doing something else, but just things like that, I mean, I'll never forget that kind of thing.
He does it as a professional. He is a wonderful person to work with.
Well, the first interview I had was in Belmont County. I remember that pretty well. That was on my birthday. And I looked into the camera and I thought of the long haul he was going to have, 88 barns, and it just sounded like so much. And so I remember telling them on the camera, I said, I just hope that everybody out there will take good care of Scott, and I feel that they will. And I just felt like there's a lot of good people out there, I know there are, and I know he's going to come home and tell me about a lot of these, which he did, and I want to thank those women who put him up, because they had no idea who he was, they didn't know what he really was all about, and it's hard to trust people anymore. But he had a lot of nice places to stay, and I really am grateful. I'm grateful for those people that put him up. I appreciate it so much.
He is dependable, he's hardworking, honest as the day is long, a consummate gentleman, wonderful with the public, and he's 25 years old. What are the chances of that? I mean, we turned a 20-year-old kid loose on the state of Ohio, and we are much the better for it. I can't say enough about working with Scott. Now, any of the barn followers, there are so many of them out there, have probably noticed Scott's technique, how it has changed, and how he would be the first to admit that it's improved from that first barn in Belmont County.
I know that the first few barns were pretty hard with that big script O, and I had a lot of trouble with the big O. And the first year and year and a half, I'd mess around for hours trying to get that big O right.
His technique has gotten so much better, and the style has gotten better and changed. It's much bolder. His lines are bolder from the way he does Ohio to the almost perfect lines of the Bicentennial, the way he writes it. The logo flows much freely now. It's not as stiff on a surface.
Well, I never really had any formal art training, or people always ask me, how long did you go to college or that. I didn't go to any art school or anything like that. I just kind of learned it for myself. My mother has a lot to do with that, and her mother, because they have artistic talent as well.
He approaches each barn the same way, looks for the same types of characteristics. Is there a window in the way? Are there vents on each side? A lot of barns, they were working farms, so they need to vent the heat out of the top of the barn. So if you're storing hay or something, so they're going to have vents, they're going to have windows, they might have a door to use to access the top part of the barn. These are all things that he looks at when he approaches a site, when he sees the site for the first time.
What usually happens is Bicentennial will send me a picture of the barn, and then that way I kind of know what I'm going to be dealing with when I go there.
He looks for the type of wood. He prefers a wider board.
This is a real nice surface to work on as far as barns go, because it's real flat and they're big boards, and the detail's a lot easier to do on a nice barn like this.
The tongue and groove gives him fits. He's always muttering about tongue and groove.
A lot of times get barns that are, I call tongue and groove surface, and there's a groove about every 2 inches, and that makes it not as much fun to do because you've got to get in there with your brush, and then it wants to run down all those grooves.
But the proof is in his work, and if you go back and look at the barns that are tongue and groove, they are finely detailed. He really takes pride in his work. He will not rush, although I've tried to move him along sometimes, and sometimes I try and slow him down.
The barn can take as many as 3 days and as little as 1 day to do. Depends on the size of the barn, condition it's in when I get there, that sort of thing. If the barn side needs painted, that's going to have some time.
But he really takes a lot of pride in what he does, and it's evident in all 88 barns. They're magnificent, and I think it's because it's the patient way and the professional way that he approaches each barn. One of the most interesting components of this are the barn, heck, I'll call them barn groupies, that follow Scott Hagan from county to county to county. I mean, let's face it, they're coming out to watch paint dry.
Well, let's see, I've only got 5 more to go, so what, 83, let's see? 74. And next week we're going to do 7 up in the northern counties, Lorain, Erie, and there, and then after that we'll almost be up with Scott.
That'll make us 64, I think, of the 88.
We've got 9 barns that we've spotted. We've got pictures of 7, and so this makes our 10th barn.
70 some. And we've got this one to get yet, and then 2 on the way home.
Clinton County, Montgomery County, Ashland County.
Marion and Morrow and Logan.
One time we drove like 14 hours, and we only hit like 7 of the barns, so usually it's just to go get the barns and then back home again.
Jackson County, Ross County.
It was amazing to us. I mean, they're, planning trips to go to different barns and all these things, and they all had shirts. We're like, whoa. And this all got started with me at the painting of the Miami County barn. I was born in that county, so I thought it was interesting that I could see that be painted. So we went up and spent 2 days, and it was pretty much weather like we've been having in the 90s and hot, but it was wonderful. The second day when he finished, they had homemade ice cream and cookies shaped like the state of Ohio. And so that was really a nice, it was a lot of fun. It was a fun time.
I saw my first one in Tuscaloosa, number 11. That was in October of 1998. And from there, I couldn't believe how neat they all were.
I said, how do I get addresses for these? And she said, oh, we can send you all that. So she sent me up to date, the 67 that had been painted.
We took off and we started doing it. And as more that we did, the more we enjoyed it. We got to see different places of the state that we probably would have never have gone before, ride roads that we would have definitely never been on before. And as we started seeing more and more barns, it became interesting to see the different paintings. Although the emblem and the symbol is the same, it's always got a little bit of flair to it, a little variety, and it was really a good time for us.
We tried to do 7 barns in a day, and we would sit down the night before and plan our trip, and I had a list of everything. We go this road, right, left, and so it took all the work out of it when we went to photograph the barn. We always went to the door, asked for permission if it was all right if we photographed. A lot of times we didn't find people at home, but a lot of times we did. And that was the most wonderful experience, talking to those people. And they sent us home with wonderful stories, a lot of laughs. And one couple even sent us home with a basket full of produce out of their garden.
The one in Muskegon, it was way back in. And when we pulled up there, the man and lady were in their golf carts. They were going, I guess, back to the barn. And they were so nice. They stood there and they got out of the cart and they talked to us probably about an hour and a half. And it was really nice.
Yeah, we're barn groupies. When you pull into a barn and there's 200 people there, I guess you got to consider yourself one of them.
What makes otherwise normal, hardworking, everyday Ohioans drop everything they're doing, drive thousands of miles over the 5-year history of the project to sit and watch Scott paint a barn, to take photos of Scott painting a barn?
They're all of them are different. I mean, different colors and the way he paints them, it's really great. My husband wasn't real red hot when we first got started with the idea, but as we went along, he's had as much fun as I did because he loves to visit, and he loves to visit the older generation, and we're finding a lot of those with these farms and barns.
Everybody's been very, very friendly, and we've had a lot of neat experiences. Usually it's hard to leave because they're so nice. They want you to stay and enjoy the time.
It's been great. We've met such good people, and talking to them, it's just something else. I mean, all of them have been so nice, and Scott has really been nice. I mean, he's signed a lot of papers for me and pictures for me, and he's a great guy.
And I'll ask these people, where are you traveling from? And they'll say, Licking County. And I'll look on my map, and heck, that's an hour and a half away, or 2 hours, or 3 hours, or 4 hours. These people are going to those barns.
We're over 5,000 miles. And by the time we do next week, and maybe a few more around the southern Scioto and Lawrence yet, it'll be over 6. Oh boy, about 9,500. That would be going and coming, getting them.
There was a lady in Shelby County that called, and she didn't know she could make it. I said, well, it's going to be a nice project. Well, she called me back to tell me that she would be here. She didn't have to do that, but she just felt like she needed to call and tell me she was going to be there. The barn enthusiasts, I think they've taken ownership of this project. They're very proud of what they've done and very proud of their scrapbooks.
I have a book over here, I have a book. They're all in there, up to date.
Jealous if somebody's got a photo of the Wood County barn before it was touched up and a Wood County barn after it was touched up.
I'll probably be working on it 5 years from now. I love it.
They trade them back and forth, and when did you get that, and have you been to Sandusky, and have you been to Lucas, and have you seen the yellow barn in Cuyahoga County or the black barn in Hamilton County, and oh, it's hard to find, you won't be able to find it, the directions are terrible. We get that call a lot.
Some of these places to get to are a real challenge.
And I'm looking and looking and looking, and he's saying, did you see it? Did you see it? Of course I didn't see it, or I'd have told him.
We didn't know where we were at because we knew the barn was around, that area somewhere.
So I'm looking and looking and looking, and
we wasn't even anywhere near and where we were supposed to go, so he showed us this little road to go to, and it was really, really way back in.
I've always described the whole thing as a scavenger hunt because the directions are never perfect. Some of them aren't very good.
As I tell people that call the office, the directions are purposely vague because it adds to the thrill of the hunt. There's a scavenger hunt quality to it.
Well, it's definitely a thrill because sometimes you've been looking for a while.
I'm often asked, why is this project taken on the popularity that it has?
I think they're universal. There literally isn't a county in Ohio without a barn. It's something we all have close to home. And each one's unique and a little bit different depending on the agricultural industry of the area, the ethnic heritage of the area. The barns are shaped different, they're sized differently, they're positioned differently. And so every county has an opportunity to have something that's uniquely theirs, that they can see the picture and go, I know that's mine. And yet they share it with every other county too.
The first footprints in Ohio were agriculture, whether it was Native Americans planting corn, settlers planting crops for sustenance and for a livelihood, to the agriculture that we have today. There's an agricultural heritage to Ohio. Barns are obviously a part of that.
It's such a big thing. Ohio is just a wonderful place where they raise food for just so many things. There's so many different varieties of things that they have. So it's a huge thing in Ohio, and I'm proud of it. I'm really proud of it.
I think barns are a throwback to a simpler time. They evoke an Americana that I think people long for, especially right now.
Well, it does. You know, one of the original images in my head before it even became a spoken, conscious idea was of traveling places with my grandparents as a child. We used to go to Athens to White's Mill in the spring to get the seed and the chicks and the little bunnies for Easter. And coming back, we'd count mail pouch barns. And it was like a sort of a fun game on the way, a landmark way to know your territory and see that territory.
I think people enjoy going and sitting in a lawn chair and talking to a neighbor. They enjoy going and sitting in a lawn chair and watching something that is you don't see anymore, an art form that is from days gone by.
Well, one reason I think barns have been so popular is because no one really does that kind of work anymore. When the mailpush died out, there hasn't been anything for years, and I think people see that it's someone actually using a brush to do work. That's one thing, and it's not a billboard. They really seem to pay a lot more attention to barns than they do billboards, just because it's just not something that you see all the time.
And I think the bicentennial has kind of made the barns an icon of their celebration. Barns are an American icon, and we have kind of co-opted barns and made them our own.
I have had so many people say to me, I've seen barns in this county and that county and whatever, and that's what you hear about is the barns.
It takes us back to yesteryear and makes you feel a little bit like you're a part of that time. And you tend to see things other states, and you don't see anything in your own area, so this gives you a chance to see your own state a little bit.
Well, it's just, we love farm, and we love farm people and small town people. And we have eaten in restaurants in these small towns, and the people in there are so friendly, and it's just been an absolute wonderful time to fellowship with just the cream of the crop, the farmers and the small town people. Nothing wrong with big towns, but there's just something about the country. It's a great country.
You know, with everything that's happened in America over the past several months, it's just true Americana. I think that's really, really what says it all.
As the Ohio Bicentennial Barn Project winds down, we are often asked, did we know that it would have this impact? We were not Madison Avenue geniuses. We had no idea what the impact of this project would be. We are thrilled, amazed, and awed by this project. It's allowed us to touch every Ohio county.
One of the proudest things that have happened, in my opinion, out of this is that many of Ohio's barns that were in disrepair, that aren't even part of the program, have been repaired and become symbols of family history. People are painting their family names on barns with dates of founding, and I've seen knockoff bicentennial barns with big Ohio flags on them, and I have seen barns with Cardinals and barns with John Deere tractors and barns with Holstein cattle, and I'm really happy to see every one of them. It brings you home. I mean, a lot of us grow up and move away from your hometown, but it kind of brings you back.
I'm grateful for this. It's been a real experience for our family. And for Scott, it's a dream. I came here yesterday and I thought about the movie, The Field of Dreams. I thought about the cornfields here and soybeans and that, and I just thought, you know, God, it's been a field of dreams. And I'm so appreciative of it. You don't know how much appreciative I am of it. I just am so grateful. And I want to thank the Bicentennial Commission. They opened doors for our whole family. And I just want to say thanks.
Well, I would paint thank you really big to everybody that's been part of it. Without the Bicentennial, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And, you know, I'd like to think I have a little something to do with the Bicentennial too. So I guess thank you from the barn painter would be just good enough for me, and that would be neat. I guess that's what people call me, as a barn painter, so that's fine.
We're Buckeyes, and they say Buckeyes are worthless nuts, but I don't believe a word of it. There are wonderful people in this state.
The Bicentennial has come to every Ohio county and allowed each Ohio county to celebrate Ohio, to celebrate what's important to that county. And if at the end of the day, when Scott has taken down his scaffolding and the paint is dried and the bunting is removed, people walk away from a barn project, feel a little bit better about themselves, about their country, about Ohio, have learned a little bit about their community, well, that's pretty good. That's what we had always hoped for.